would there be a chance you'd work on a new Creed record?
Trust me, I'm thinking about it. You know what? They got to set the tone, dude. They got to set the tone of where they are right now and where, where they want to be. Where do they want to go?
Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin' Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
There he is, Scott Stevens. I'll tell you what, dude, I loved when you played for the New Jersey Devils. You used to crush guys out there. It was fantastic.
Fists of steel. I'm made of metal.
Good to see you, man. Of course, the Exies, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about a lot of stuff that you have coming up. And Exies playing the Machine Shop coming up on Saturday, November 9th. I may have to make the trek up there.
Oh, man, that would be amazing. I would love it if you would go. Yeah, it's our second reunion show. Whoa, my phone is slipping around here. It's our second reunion show, and we couldn't be happier about playing the Machine Shop. That was like our home away from home all those years ago. I love Kevin. I love Minty. And here's a fun fact that I don't think anybody knows. So we'll debut it here. The hallway shots, if you've gone there,
yeah.
The very first one was us, was the Exies.
Yeah, Minty told me about that because I actually did a story about the hallway shots, and he said that around 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, 7, 8, something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Kevin sends his best. He says he can't wait for the show. And, man, we have a lot to talk about here. Spirits High, you sent that to me the other day. Of course, that came out last year. Yep. That's kind of a pandemic song, and it's funny because I'm done with the pandemic. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
I know, dude, but it keeps coming up. Songs keep happening because of it. It just takes time for things to trickle out. I'm sick of it as well. But I will say this, it kind of got me writing again. Without it, I don't think I would have written anything for the Exies. Because I didn't have any work coming in. Because, I for the last 15 years, I've been doing 18 years, whatever. I've been doing, I produced Shinedown and Halestorm and Nothing More and work with Theory and all these other bands that you guys play on your station, and that all just stopped. So when that stopped, I just was like, okay, I'm going to try to write something to cope,
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, because you didn't record yourself singing anything for like 15 years, did you? You just helped other people, right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's crazy to think, especially when you got into this business. Now, when you get in this business and the Exies kind of disbands and goes away, did you have a plan, or did this just kind of was this just kind of natural progression of things?
I never planned on putting out music again. That's the God's honest truth. When I said goodbye, and I think we stopped, our last tour was in 2008, kind of dipped into 2009 a little bit. And then we got a one-off show in 2010, which is, we could talk about that for a minute because that was really crazy. That was Russia. Somebody wanted us to come and play in Russia at like an MTV Music Awards. And it was us and Flyleaf. And I love Lacey, by the way. And look, I'll just say it. They paid us $100,000 to play 4 songs.
Yeah, that's pretty good. This is a pretty good payday for sure.
It was a good payday. And when we got there was a scheduling mix up and they said, okay, you have to play 2 songs. So we got $100,000 for 2 songs. But that was the end, man. I was kind of like, I'm saying goodbye to this. And then I just started my trek into producing and writing. And my first foray into that was with Tyler from Theory of a Deadman. And I wrote a song called Head Above Water and with him. And that, I think it got into Transformers, which was my first real big kind of stroke of luck. And that got the attention of Pete Gambarg, who was the head of Atlantic Records. And he said, I need a ballad for this artist I have. Her name's Lizzie Hale. And he's like, have you heard of her? And I was like, yeah, I've heard of her. I never, I haven't written with her yet. So he's like, I need a ballad like the one you wrote for Theory. And I said, okay. And so she showed up and I said, I don't have any ideas that are a ballad, but I have this idea. It's called I Miss the Misery. And that was our very first session that we did, and that was our first song. So, we sent it in, and everybody loved it. They didn't love it like this is a smash, anything like that, but they thought it was definitely good enough to be on the record. And then it was Lizzie, I think, that brought awareness to the label and management at that time to say, hey, this song is like holding its hand up live. Everybody knows all the words already. And we should consider it as a single. And then the rest is history. It's their biggest streaming song to date. So
I was going to say, because that's obviously a staple in their show. Which person actually paid more attention to their hair, Tyler or Lizzie?
Probably Tyler.
I'm gonna have to send him this just to bust his chops.
Yeah, we hit a couple chords, and then he'd spray some Aquanet.
him and his pompadour, my God, he can't get away from that. But that's great that Lizzie, because that you've kind of in a certain way you've helped kickstart some of the careers and maybe push some of these bands to the next level with some of the songs you've worked on with them.
Yeah, it's kind of worked out that way. I never planned it, dude. I never thought that it would be this way, but I think coming from the touring rock world and being with all these bands at one time, that's what helped me to kind of because we came at it from a songwriting place, but we also always were like, how will this go over live? Mm-hmm. Does this make me want to go like that? Does this make me, does it hit the back row? And that's how I approached everything. And because I was working with very like-minded individuals, I got a lot of cuts really quickly, and that helped develop my writing chops. And I always go into a session just with something a little bit half-baked, because I want to see what the other person is going to add to it. And you end up learning a lot that way. So that's how I do it.
Well, I texted Brent Smith from Shinedown earlier. He said of you, you're a profound songwriter and producer, very specific style, super modern. Of course, you've worked with the Shinedown guys many times. Talk about that.
Yeah, the first time I worked with Brent, I was very, very nervous. This was Shinedown. This was a big A-list band, and I just wanted to have the right song idea, because Brent can write songs without anybody. So when he comes to you, I think he's looking for an outside influence or something that he might not necessarily think of on his own. And I basically came in with this idea, and he didn't really like it too much. And I think he cut the session short. And then I thought, well, there went that opportunity. And little did I know that I think within the next year, my wife had done this movie. She was a part of this movie called Birdman with Michael Keaton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they needed a remake of Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood by the Animals. You know that song?
Yeah.
Don't let me be misunderstood, for all those out there that might not know it. It's a classic. It's a staple. And they actually got Eric Burden to sing it, but he's so old that his voice was quaking and whatnot, and it didn't sound right, and the director didn't want it. And so my wife said, what about Brent Smith? He would be a great vocalist. And I was like, yeah, right. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I know Bill McGathy. I'll ask him, And so I sent an email, and I think the next day I heard back, and Brent came over maybe a few days later, and we kind of went through the original, and I kind of had a little track, and we cut, I think it was a verse and a chorus is all they wanted. And it ended up making it into the international trailer for that movie. Well, to return the favor, Brent said, well, I'm in LA for a couple of days. You want to do a write for Shinedown? And I said, sure. So he came in, and he was like, what do you want to write about? And I said, I have this idea for a song that's about love, but not like in the traditional sense. It's kind of a looking back on your life kind of a thing. And it's called How Did You Love? Like, at the end of your day, did you give love, and did you receive it? And he really liked that. And we dove in, and that day, dude, was magical. The lines were coming easily. and the song was coming together. And I noticed us both getting like chicken skin at certain times. And that's a writer's dream when it clicks. Even I'm sure Brent felt the same way, because it's not easy when you're writing. You can get roadblocks on like one line for hours. And that song wrote itself in, I think, a day and a half. And then it took me about, I think, maybe a week to put the demo together. And when I put it together and I sent it into Goot, and everybody just lost their mind. They're like, "This is a hit. Let's go track it." And so I got the opportunity to produce Shinedown, and I went into the studio in Los Angeles, NRG, where all the Linkin Park stuff was cut. And we cut 3 songs: Dangerous, another one that didn't make the record, and How Did You Love. And it was one of the great moments of my producing career, was to be in the studio with those guys for like 10 days.
It's so funny you mention that, because I didn't realize you were a co-writer on that song, because as well as I know Brent, and I know him very well, I just thought that's just how he writes. That's just his mind. That song is how he lives his life.
It is. I mean, maybe that's why it connected. And when I first was hatching it, I really thought, this feels like Brent. This feels like something that he would do. Right. And I think that's half of my job as a writer, is to be a chameleon to a degree, and to kind of get inside these people's, head, and try to figure out, like, how do I kind of be them as well as maintaining who I am. And I think that is how that song came. Originally, it was called How Do You Love? And I just thought that didn't have the right sentiment, so I put it into a past tense question, and it worked great.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because obviously when you're helping out a band like Shinedown, or you're Scott Stapp, you're kind of all over the place. So you just mentioned, like, you got to kind of be a chameleon, kind of get inside their heads. And then you got a record coming out with Dorothy, who's completely different from Shinedown and all that stuff. So what's the challenges of doing that?
Dorothy, I focused on, I've been studying her for a long time. I mean, when she put out that first record, I was like, okay, and I was watching her, and I'd already worked with Lizzie and whatnot. And I thought she had the same goods as Lizzie, but a different kind of, set of skills. Like, she was a more soulful kind of, like a rootsy kind of a singer. Whereas it's not that Lizzie can't be soulful. She's soulful all day long, but she's also got a little more metal in her. And she can scream and things like that. And Dorothy, I just studied it, and this newest single we have called Mud, I literally was afraid to show her that song. We had worked on a bunch of songs, and I think I had Mud sitting in my computer, like the track idea. I didn't have any, melodies, but I had a bunch of words written, and it was in my phone. And it took me about 5 months to gather up the courage to say, would you do something like this? Because I know it's not necessarily like what you normally do. And she's like, I don't know, sing me what you got. And I kind of sang it, and heart ain't been in your halo ain't crooked yet, and I kind of did the thing along with the music. And she's like, I like it. Let's dig in. And just like all songs, you pull up a chair, whether it's Lizzie, Brent, or Dorothy, or Stapp, or Daughtry, and when we just kind of focus and we get busy, and okay, what are we saying? And let's get it. And she was no different than that. I just needed to do homework on her, because I'd never worked with her other than Rest in Peace. That was the first time I made my connection with her.
That's a great song as well. By the way, she says of you, I texted her, she's like, he's so rad. Love that guy. So everyone says good things about you.
Oh, that's amazing, man. Well, I care, dude. I'm a fan, and I just want the best, and when somebody has the talent, and the chops like Dorothy does, and like Brent does, and Johnny Stevens from Highly Suspect does, and you just want to try to do the best you can, and sometimes you just got to try to keep up, but I've been fortunate enough to have enough solid starts and conceptualizations of things to go, hey, what do you think about this? And then it just, we join forces and we hatch it,
Where do you get your production chops from? I know you've worked with like guys like Nick Raskulevitz and stuff like that. So where do you get your production from?
I think it's from exactly that, man. I think Nick, I studied Nick a lot when we were making records with him. We made our biggest single with Nick, a song called Ugly. And, and Nick was really instrumental in letting me say what was in my head, and I want to put a flange on this guitar part and it should be clean here. And he would always entertain whatever it is that I wanted to do. So the same happened with Matt Serletic when we did My Goddess, which was our very first kind of hit, first single. And I had all these weird ideas, like how do you chop the vocals so it goes, and these were things that I was just hearing in my head. And so I learned, watched, being in the studio with these guys who were masters, and when you're in the studio for on and off for a year, you start to pick up things if you're paying attention. And I think that I always had a natural curiosity for it. And, that comes maybe from, I didn't really have a father figure growing up. So I spent a lot of time, I was an only child, and I spent a lot of time just in my room by myself, entertaining myself. And so I think that works hand in hand when you're producing, because you're kind of by yourself,
And before we started, you showed me that you're like in your studio and stuff. I think you're the third person I've talked to in the last month or so that has their own studio. I know Jason Hook is one. I'm trying to remember who the other person was, but Jason Hook said, yeah, some guys, they become rock stars and they buy cars and fancy houses and stuff like that. He goes, this is a tool for me to work with. So how how appropriate is it for you to have a studio in your house and just, be able to work on ideas at all times of the day?
Oh man, it's so instrumental. I have a place in LA and I have this place in Nashville, and I got the place in Nashville because I was here working so much that, when you're here for 5-6 months of the year, you got to get a place. And I basically just tried to do a somewhat replica of what I have in LA. It's about maybe 65% of what I have there. And it's everything, because I get up in the morning and I can come over here to the keyboard, and tap out an idea, or I'll turn it on and I can program a drum beat. I plug in my guitar. I always work on my phone first with either on a piano or acoustic guitar in the morning over coffee for about a half an hour. And if there's a good idea, I'll revisit it later on in the day. And if it feels still good 24 hours later, I'll put it in the computer and then just start to develop it and hang on to it. And maybe there's, a session will come along like Daughtry. Like I had pieces. I had the riff. And that just came from a morning thing like I normally do. And he loved that riff and we wrote that song,
And Daughtry, just like all the other people you mentioned, probably just a complete ass to work with, right?
He's the worst. No, dude.
Worst guy ever. No, all those guys are so nice, especially, Lizzie's one of the nicest people, Brent, Daughtry. I mean, all these people are so nice you get a chance to work with.
Absolutely. And Daughtry and I have been, I think we go back working together now, 1, 2, 4 or 5 records,
Wow.
So this is a very long standing relationship. And I'll never forget that day. It was July. And I think it was 2017 or maybe 17. And he said, I'm leaving RCA. I'm done with the major label thing. I'm going to go at I'm going to get my own label. And he did. And he got a distribution deal through ADA. And he said, you and I never had a hit together, but I enjoyed writing with you more than any other writer. And I want you to help me develop a new direction that's more rock, because I know this is your lane. And I said, okay, let's go. And it took, the better part of a few years for us to get it going. But once we landed on Heavy as the Crown, I knew that we were coming down the right lane. And then, of course, that led into Artificial and Pieces, and now The Dam. And it's all going the way it's supposed to go. And I'll tell you what it is, man. It's just being open. Daughtry's not trying to force anything, and he just has an open mind and an open heart. And I think that that's what I can say for all the co-writers that I've worked with, is that they're putting trust in me and I'm putting trust in them. And that's how we are able to do what we're able to do.
Now, when you work with all these guys, I've often wondered about this. Like there's the Rick Rubins, the world, and all these guys out there. So when you're working with these guys, what if they go and make a record the next time without you? Is that just kind of part of part of the armor you have to put up in this business? Or I mean, do you feel a little bit hurt by some of that sometimes?
Yes, sure you do. You get attached to people, but you also know that life is an adventure, right? And you need to have new experiences sometimes. It seems like no matter what happens, I end up getting to come back around and writing with them again. Like I just saw Brent, like I said, a couple of days ago, and he's like, I'm going to call you. We'll work on some stuff. And I didn't work on this last record, but I worked on the 2 records before that, and like Lizzie and I, we've done the Strange Curious Case of, and then I think I had one song on the Vicious record, and we were kind of taking a break. And then Back from the Dead, I did every single song with her on that record. And so sometimes you just want to take a break, but it stings sometimes. And, you got to be patient. Like you said, you got to have thick skin, and, that's it. I mean, there's no real rhyme or reason to sometimes why somebody wants to work with somebody else when they've had so much success with somebody, but you just have to, it's part of the job. It's just part of the job.
We talked a little bit earlier about some of the producers that you admired. Who are some of the other producers that you like, and maybe even some of the songwriters that we may have heard of?
Well, I love Nick. He's got such a genuine way of doing things. I like Drew Folk. I think he's really good. I met him when he first got to Los Angeles. I like Mitch Marlowe, who I produced the New Year's Day records with. I think Tyler, that does all the Falling in Reverse stuff, is really great. I haven't worked with him yet, but we talk sometimes on like Instagram, and because usually I don't write anything unless I'm producing it or co-producing it. But sometimes when you've got a guy like Tyler Smith, he's got it on lock, to be a writer with an artist it's fine, because it's in good hands. And sometimes we become the producers we become because we'll write a song and then it just gets changed so much that it just gets ruined. And that started to happen to me. And that's why I really went hard on my producing chops, so that I could see something through to the end. But if there's a guy or a girl that's capable, that really knows what they're doing, I'll just write, and try to give them the best song that I can, but it's always good to try to see it down the line. And yeah, there's a lot of good people out there.
Yeah, locally around here, I know Jay Rustin is a friend. I've never actually met Jay before, but he went to school with Darren McCarty, and yeah, he's in Los Angeles. And Toby Wright's here in Michigan. Maybe you'll be able to see him at the Machine Shop coming up.
Maybe, man. And I love Jay. Like he and I go back. He used to mix some of my stuff, 10 years ago. But he's a talent, man. He's great. But the Stone Sour stuff that he's done, and he's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you guys are coming to the Machine Shop, like I said, on November 9th. And it's just so interesting to hear. You never know where your life is going to take you. And you're in this band. And it's kind of funny because you're writing songs for yourself, but you didn't have that much success. But then you start writing songs for other people. And all of a sudden the success really started to roll in, didn't it?
It really did. I mean, I think we had a top, like Goddess was like number 10 or 9 or something. And then Ugly made it to like 6 or 5, I want to say, I don't know. And yeah, it was like a mid-level, kind of, people knew who we were, and then when I started to do the co-write thing and really being able to spread out and not just work with one artist, but like 50 artists, something happened. And it just became, I mean, like, I think now, well, I think I'm at almost 3 billion streams for the for the songs that I've been a part of, and that just blows me away. I would have, we could have had this conversation. I wouldn't believe you that it would be that. And I have 15 number ones now, and it's so surreal, man. It's crazy. I'm so thankful for it, though. So much.
By the way, that wasn't a slag against the Exies. It's just, it's just you guys didn't really achieve it, but then you get to Shinedown level, Halestorm level. I mean, some of these bands are monstrous now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you know what? We might have gotten bigger had we not stopped. I don't really know how that would have gone. I often play that game in my head. Like if we would have kept going, would we have finally cracked and got a number one? I don't know. I guess not, because I mean it didn't happen, So but we're grateful. I mean, like us coming back around is just kind of, it's the 20th anniversary of Head for the Door, which is our biggest record. And last year it was the 20th anniversary of Inertia, which had My Goddess on it. So we're just, we're doing some one-offs, and we're basically kind of just having fun. There's no pressure here. I'm going to do the Creed cruise. Scott Stapp, because I produce him, he said, "Hey, you want to do the Creed cruise next year?" And I said, "Yeah." So we're going to do that. We'll see. You never know where this is going to, I mean, like I said, I just played a radio show with Shinedown and Sublime in Theory, and I played my new songs and some of my old songs. And, it was, you never know, like you said, where it's going to take you. I mean, I could write a song tomorrow and all of a sudden this band has a number one hit. You never know.
Well, like we were talking about before, that radio show you played, and I was telling Brent earlier, was from a guy I was with, the guy I used to work with at Buffalo a billion years ago. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. You're talking about Rod Ryan, right?
Yeah, Rod. Yeah. I haven't seen or spoken to him in years, but I see him on the internet, and stuff like that.
You guys have a thing, man. Your voices. I mean, Meltdown, your voice, you got this thing. And he has the same thing. It's just I don't even know what that is. You guys are made for the radio. You're made for that mic. Somehow it picks up this low end frequency, and it's kind of like crack. You got to listen to it easily, and that's why I think you guys are so successful and been around for so long.
Well, don't forget me when next time you're looking for a voice.
Absolutely.
Hey, but you just mentioned the Creed cruise, which obviously, I mean, you can't say no to a cruise, right? I mean, those things are so much fun. But would there be a chance, and I'm just throwing this out there, you don't even have to answer, but would there be a chance you'd work on a new Creed record?
Scott and I have talked about it. I have talked to Mark very, very, very briefly about it. We're just going to have to see. I think it's going to probably start off with Scott and Mark and the guys. And then once they run their process, I think I'll get a shot to get in there and try to write what they might be. Maybe they're missing something. Maybe they just want a different point of view on something. Trust me, I'm thinking about it. What's amazing is, like, we're going to have another talk about it, because I'm going to play, on the 29th, day after Thanksgiving, I'm going to play Madison Square Garden with Stapp and Dorothy when they do Walls live. And Marty and I, who produced that song, are going to play the acoustics, and back them up. And it's going to be a special moment. And you can bet I'm going to talk to Mark and be like, "Come on, dude, let's go."
Tell him I said it was okay. Of course, he's from Detroit, so.
I mean, come on, 4 hours. Let's go. If we don't get something in 4 hours, I mean, come on, everybody can spare 4 hours.
That's a great way to look at it, though. If you said, like, those guys want to get in there first and take their first stabs at it, maybe get some rough stuff demoed out or whatever, and then have some outer ears come in.
Yeah, they got to, they got to set the tone, dude. They got to set the tone of where they are right now and where they want to be. Where do they want to go? Because if they want to just do nostalgia, that's great. But they might want to do nostalgia mixed with new things. I don't know. I'm not having those conversations with them, but we'll see,
Well, that's awesome. Hey, man, thanks for all the great stories today. And of course, thanks for all the music you've helped write that I play on my radio show. That seems like
you're more than welcome, man. I mean, anytime. And we should do this a little bit more regularly. I think this is our first time, and I've always got music coming out. So, like, we could do some really fun stuff where you get it first and that kind of thing.
Well, maybe we can put that in the hopper for sure for the future, but I'll see you up there at the Machine Shop. That's a Saturday, November 9th, and as of right now, there is nothing on the book, so I'm going to have to take a ride up there. I haven't been up to the Machine Shop in a few months. Of course, Kevin, like we just talked about, Minty, those guys are so great.
I would just love it if you would go. I think it's going to be a great time. And, we got people flying in from England and Australia, and it's just nuts, man. That's what time has done for the Exies, is that it's made it. I mean, there are people that love this group, and now we're getting to, it just comes down to that. It's just these people that are hardcore. We just did room and sold it out, and it was amazing. It was such an energy. It was so fun.
Well, I'm only showing up at the machine shop if I get a hallway picture.
Sure, you're guaranteed, and Minty will take it.
That's right. Hey, Scott, thank you so much for your time, dude. Safe travels. We'll see you here in a few weeks.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.